Authorities in Texas this morning launching a criminal investigation into the transportation of dozens of Venezuelan migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts.
I believe that they were preyed upon. Somebody came from out of state, preyed upon these people, lured them with promises of a better life, which is what they were absolutely looking for, and with the knowledge that they were going to cling to whatever hope they could be offered for a better life, to just be exploited and hoodwinked into making this trip to Florida and then onward to Martha's Vineyard for what I believe to be nothing more than political posturing to make a point.
That is Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar. He says the migrants were only flown to Martha's Vineyard for a photo op as they were ultimately left stranded.
They all signed consent forms to go, and then the vendor that is doing this for Florida provided them with a packet that had a map of Martha's Vineyard. It had the numbers for different services on Martha's Vineyard, and then it had numbers for the overall agencies in Massachusetts that handle things involving immigration and refugees. So it was clearly voluntary. They said they didn't have housing. They said they couldn't accommodate. Like, let's just say that's true for a minute. Well, what does that mean for these poor towns in Texas? What does it mean for these other places across the country that are seeing influx?
Migrants are also being sent to cities like Chicago and New York City, and CNN has been covering it all.
I'm Adrienne Broaddus in Chicago, where more than 600 migrants seeking asylum have arrived. Governor J.B. Pritzker says some of the migrants will have a sponsor here in Chicago. Pritzker also added at least 75 members of the National Guard, who are logistic professionals, will help the local government and nonprofits on the ground. Pritzker says the buses have been coming nearly every day, and they expect more to come since late August. He also added those migrants, men, women, and children, have been dropped off overnight at Union Station in downtown Chicago. When they arrive, they receive a health screening, which determines what vaccinations and other health care they may or may not need.
I'm Polo Sandoval in New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams says that he is exploring all legal options in the face of mounting migrant numbers. Just in the last several days, roughly 1,000 asylum seekers have arrived in New York City. That they are added to the over 11,000 that have already been processed by the Department of Homeland Services here in New York. The city is now considering temporary housing aboard cruise ships. According to Mayor Adams, New York City migrant advocates are calling on the city to reconsider that plan, arguing on Monday that housing asylum seekers on dock ships would impede their access to jobs, to health care, not to mention other community services. They instead are calling on the solution to be the assistance of helping people move out of the shelter system and into permanent housing in order to expand capacity.
I'm Rosa Flores in El Paso, where I've spoken to multiple migrants who say they are spending the night or have spent several nights here at the airport. The reasons vary. Migrants say that they are either waiting for their family members to wire them money to buy their tickets to their final destinations, or they're taking odd jobs to earn money so that they can pay for their tickets out of town. Officials here say that the number of migrants coming to El Paso is not letting up, so much so the mayor of this city continues to bus migrants to various destinations across the nation.
Also, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis defending his decision to send those migrants to Martha's Vineyard as a Texas sheriff launches an investigation into the move. Tim.
Still ahead, a Texas sheriff warns Florida Governor Ron DeSantis that there could be legal consequences for his flying 50 migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. The latest as those migrants receive some legal representation, and why New York is now weighing legal options as that city faces the pressure of helping thousands of migrants bust in from Texas.
Welcome back. U.S. officials have now encountered a record number of migrants along the southern border this fiscal year, which ends in just about a week. According to recent data, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents encountered more than 2 million migrants. Officials say an influx of migrants from countries including Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba are driving those numbers higher.
We should note that they're taking advantage of what remains a legal process here in the U.S. All this happening as lawyers for a group of migrants recently flown to Martha's Vineyard by the governor of Florida say their clients were duped into traveling under, quote, false pretenses. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he claims everything was done above board.
They all signed consent forms to go, and then the vendor that is doing this for Florida provided them with a packet that had a map of Martha's Vineyard. It had the numbers for different services on Martha's Vineyard. So it was clearly voluntary, and all the other nonsense you're hearing is just not true. And why wouldn't they want to go, given where they were?
CNN's Gloria Casmino joins us now from New York City, which is also facing the arrivals of busloads of migrants. So Gloria, I'm curious, what is Mayor Adams saying about his own legal plans? Because again, you know, there are the politics of this, there's the law. There's an existing law here which provides an avenue for cases to be heard by migrants such as these. So what are the legal avenues here?
Correct. And Jim, and the mayor has said that he is weighing legal options against these other states. The city is in a difficult position here. New York City is one of the few places that is required to provide shelter to homeless people by law. And the shelter system here in New York City had already been under stress even before these migrant arrivals were happening. Just this past weekend, a record number of people arriving here in New York, at least 1,000 people, 9 buses. So the mayor really under pressure here. He says his administration is looking at some options, including possibly using cruise ships as a way to house people while they are going through the system. And as you said, while they're being connected to some of the services that they're in need of.